check out this concept of what a musical line is. What does it really mean to play a line? In the modern world of music, to play a line means to play a phrase, right? If I do something like, that could be considered a phrase or a line. If you're transcribing somebody, oh, those are some cool lines. So it's a very generic idea of a phrase, nothing too specific. But if we go back in time, even before improvisation and the popularization of jazz, a line was something more specific and even simpler. It just meant a melody, a specific line of notes that you were orchestrating or harmonizing. You know, if you were an orchestrator, you would have a line of notes for a specific piece you're working on, and then you would put specific, color for the instrument's harmony below that note to create the arrangement. So it was something more specific and simpler. It was just a melody, an actual melody that you were orchestrating. As jazz got popular, the concept of a line started becoming really generic, and it just meant a phrase. But if we pay attention and go back to the whole idea of what a line is, at least for me, when I started doing that, it taught me a lot about voice leading. Taught me a lot about connecting my lines in a more logical way, and it taught me a lot about how to play things that are more meaningful harmonically and melodically for the song I'm working on or playing. So let me give you a quick example. I'm going to pick a random chord progression, 1, 6, 2, 5 in F major. So that would be F major 7, D minor 7, C minor 7, C7. I'm using guiton chords, which are chords that just have a root and the guitons. And these chords are great. They're like a blank canvas. They stay out of the way. If you're comping for another soloist, if you're comping for a vocalist, they're never going to get in the way, in the high register, unless you play them way too high. So the fact that they're a blank canvas means that they're kind of open for whatever color you want to put on top of them. And that's where we're going to start building our line. We're going to put a line of notes on top of those chords that we're going to use to improvise. So for the F major 7, I'm going to put the 5th on top. That's going to be my color. Then for the D minor, let's do E, which is the 9th. Then let's do the 7th for that G minor. And then I'm going to do that 3rd for the C. So my isolated line will sound like this. Right? So I'm going to improvise, and I'm not going to be so obvious. It's not that I'm going to be improvising playing. I'm going to play my stuff, branch out, but it's sort of like you're in the woods and you're going off your trail just to explore it, and then you remember like, okay, to get back on track, just go back to the trail. Something like that. So let's see. So, I was just playing some generic lines there, but what made it more specific was that I was trying to follow my trail of notes that I picked. And I can pick different lines. I could have picked the 6 or 13 for that F major, then gone on to the 9th for that. Then let's go back to the 5th for G minor, so that was the same note for the F. And then let's do flat 9 for the C7. So now our line is going to be like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So I'm going to improvise keeping that in mind. That's going to be my trail, my line. So let's do it. right? So I'm trying to play ideas and branching up, not being afraid of going away from that. But the line is helping me find that trail in more specifics, more of a melody and content that I'm trying to play. I have to also add that guide tones could be lines themselves for chords. For example, I could take the sevenths and play of those sevenths for those chords. And that could be my line. So the line isolated would sound like this. Right? That's a really pretty melody right there. So I was trying to follow that as having that as my trail, the sevenths. So, it's really interesting because it gives you this focus, on a specific note to follow. So the best thing you can do to get the most out of this is have your guide tone chords ready, especially on guitar. Specifically talking about guitar here, you want to be familiar with the root 6 version, which is just a root on the 6th string and then the guide tones on the D and G strings. And then you put colors on top of that. You have to learn how to put different colors that work for the chord on top so that you can start building different lines. And then following that trail. So, key, learn your guide tone chords root 6 first, and then start exploring. Pick a random chord progression, 2-5-1, 1-6-2-5, and try to build some lines, putting different colors on top that work for the chord. Some of them will voice lead, but you don't always have to be voice leading by a half step or a whole step. You can make some jumps and you get some nice, colorful, variation like there. That's a pretty melody. So that would be that line note for the, I'm playing an A flat now for the A flat major. And then I picked that third for the F. And then I picked flat 9. So that's my line. And I'm following that. So getting familiar with the guide tones and then picking a random chord progression and trying to see if you can build a random line with notes that work. And then improvising off that. The other type of guide tone chords you want to be familiar with is the root 5. Because it looks different on guitar. Same idea, but the root is going to be at the bottom. The third is going to be on the D string, and then sevenths on the G string. So learn how to put a note on top of that too. Third, that's that sound. Ninth, you could put the root 2, but you'd have to change the bass or play something like this. Stuff like that. And then, learn the main qualities for the guide tones, because you're going to need major 7 chords for the guide tone chords. Major 7 chords, minor 7 flat 5, and dominant 7. And maybe a diminished 7 chord 2 here and there that you will need. But the main 4 that are in major scale are major 7, minor 7, flat 5, and dominant 7. So learn root 6 and root 5 so that you know how to change between those two strings and you don't have to be jumping around all the time. That's how you can start building those lines with the guides and chords. You can work on some drills too. For example, I'm going to pick a 1, 6, 2, 5 in F major, and I'm going to pick my starting line note as D. And from there, I'm going to try to play those chords, 1, 6, 2, 5, and I'm going to try to go up always. If I have a common tone, I'm going to try to keep that common tone so that we can work on finding different lines on chords. I'm keeping that common tone. We can keep that. For C7, we could do this, but it wouldn't be altered. So from there, let's go up to this shape right here. Right? That's not exactly a guide tone chord because it has a 7th and a flat 9. So once you learn your guide tone chords, you can change the guide tones a little bit to fit different voicings. So there I changed the 3rd for the flat 9. Maybe a topic for a different video. But so let's keep going up here. Kept that, right? Then let's maybe play this. Let's go to 2 and then 5. Keep going up. Let's do drills like that where like you pick a specific situation that you have to solve. In this case, it was a 1, 6, 2, 5, and I was trying to get my line to always go up as much as I could and have some common tones. Just to exercise the idea of putting a line on top of the chords. Here's one of my favorite things to learn from this approach. It is the fact that it teaches you how to truly learn a song, a standard. For example, let's pick Alone Together. When you learn the melody, your chords have to have that melody note on top, and that's your melodic line. That's the line we're talking about. That way you learn what specific color the composer wanted for that chord, and you have to respect that. For example, if I play Alone Together, which has this first motif, Alone Together, right? Those top notes, you have to respect that as your melody line for the chords you're playing. Because when you go to that 5 there, Alone Together, right? If you play this, that's cool, but it has this melody note on top. So a lot of people play, any random voicing that's altered, but you're breaking the melody line that the song is trying to teach you. A voicing that has this note on top is required. Right? I'm putting chords with that melody line on top. And it's not just for the voicings you're picking to play, which need that melody note on top. It is what you choose to improvise with too, because you can change anything below that. This chord could be very well a minor major chord there. So with that melody line on top, you're going to improvise and pick different colors below that melody line. Top note right there. So I'm following that melody line that the song is teaching me. And with the melody line on top, again, you can pick different structures to put below that. It doesn't have to just be this for the second chord. It could have been anything that has that melody line on top. So I'm going to play a line That was my cadence there. Was falling on the melody, which is E for that A chord. Anyway, the specifics of a line, having something specific on top of your chord that you're following. So anyway, just having a top note on top of your chords that you're following as you improvise, like a trail. Just to have more specifics of voice leading, where your line is going, and just more specifics as a player when you're improvising, right? Of where you should go and what colors you're following. And with the song material, once again, following that melody line, which is the song melody when you're playing a song, teaches you how to actually play the material of the song. At least for me, when I improvise, I want to improvise on material. What am I improvising on? Alone Together. What's Alone Together about? What is the D minor chord that I have to play? Is it a generic D minor? There's nothing. There's no content to it. It is a D minor with the third on top. Play anything you want, but have in mind that the melody note is the third. So what can we discover? That will have that third sound on top. Not just a random D minor. And then it goes to A7. Okay, what does the A7 have on top? What is the composer trying to evoke with that melody note on that 5 chord, right? So learning how to play things that are more meaningful for the song in that way with that melody line that you have to follow. Anyway, guys, sorry again for the long video, but I hope this material is helpful for some of you that might not be familiar with this concept. And I'll see you guys in the next one.